everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I really appreciate all of you hanging out with me, checking out these shows, and I really appreciate all your love and support as we go forward. We have an incredible show for you guys today. I am rejoined by Jon of the SEPI Agency, and he made his first appearance back on the show in Season 6, Episode 18, The Art of Investigating, and he's back today to talk a little more about some ideas and theories that they're developing in their work. And for the record, SEPI is SEPI, and that stands for Supernatural, Extraterrestrial, and Paranormal Investigations Agency. And the beauty of it is that they utilize a lot of law enforcement type of methodologies in their work. It's very, very calculated. It's very structured, and it's really fantastic stuff they're doing over there. And you can find out more by going to sepi-agency.com and learn a lot more about what they're doing and what's going on there. But without further delay, let's get to the show. Hey, welcome to the show, David. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the introduction, Brent. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. Thank you. And I really love when guests come back, because I think one episode gives us a glimpse into the world of people, but it's been really refreshing to have guests that come back and fill in blanks and expand on their ideas and stories. And so I'm really thrilled that you're doing this, especially as comprehensive as your body of work is and what you guys are doing. It definitely needs more than one show.
Oh, absolutely. I think I pre-warned you that I can pretty much speak for England. So we've just had so much going on since our last appearance with you guys. And SEPI Agency has been going for over 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And it was set up primarily so we could use law enforcement framework to investigate the paranormal and the extraterrestrial. And I wanted also an agency that investigated the full spectrum rather than just focus on one element, such as, like, for example, MUFON would probably be your go-to guys if you're going to report a UFO event, but probably not if you saw an apparition. So we're there to take them all on, because we believe fully that they're all interlinked and connected in some way. It's not unusual to hear about poltergeist activity before and after UFO sightings. So, there are things that are just linked that need investigating. So hence why we've done that. And the law enforcement framework is put in place because of my background. Just a little bit about me. I spent 4.5 years with the National Crime Agency as an officer with them. For those who are not familiar with the NCA, they are pretty much the same as the FBI in America. So they deal with serious and organised crime nationally and internationally, and deal with some real bad people. So I spent 4.5 years with those guys, and I spent the last 11.5 years as a serving police officer here in the state that I live in, England. And I do that as a voluntary role. I've been doing that now for 11.5 years, as I said. And that's given me a lot of experience in investigations and dealing with people and turn up to all sorts of horrific things and deaths and fights and domestics and all sorts of things. But I've used the ethos of all that law enforcement experience to go, how can we better document and investigate the paranormal and the extraterrestrial phenomena? Because I don't know about you, Brent, but I've come across a lot of groups that mean well, but then don't share or don't document.
Sure. Yeah.
So all that knowledge and information that they have is just lost to the ether. Maybe it'll appear in a book 20 years later, or maybe it turns into a YouTube video, but it essentially gets lost. So that means that we're losing a lot of information that's not been shared. So the heart of the SEPI agency is about collaboration. We are trying to say to people, come to us to report all manner of phenomena. We will do an investigation. We do have thresholds, however, because we are a voluntary organisation. Obviously, this is not our day job. I'd love for it to be our day job eventually in the future, and I have plans in place to hopefully make that a thing. Because, I've learned something. I think I heard it on your station, actually, where it's impolite almost to earn money out of this subject.
Yeah, there's some people take umbrage with that, but I don't agree at all.
Is it called grifting or something? I think I heard it called.
Yeah, there's any number of terms, but and I don't understand the philosophy behind it, because again, if you're a painter and you make a beautiful portrait, isn't it okay to get paid for that? If you're doing what you love, it doesn't preclude that you suddenly don't have integrity if you can make a living at it. So that's my take.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do not. I'm not. We're about transparency as well. So I am all about what can we do to bring in a passive income, because ultimately I want me and my officers to be able to get their expenses paid, at least if they have to go and visit people. But ultimately, if it's not their day job, then they're not going to have the time to put into the effort to do proper investigations. So yes, absolutely, we'll be looking to try and get this funded big time eventually, and pay people to do this work, because I think it's important, and it's worthy. So I've got no shame in saying absolutely, of course, I want to make money. There's other people doing it out there. I won't mention their names. They're quite big figures in the ufology community. They're making money. They have all sorts of schemes about how they can raise money, and they've got subscription things going on, and all Patreon and all this sort of good stuff. I mean, some of the channels I follow, they've a few million subscribers, and they're getting an income per month, and that must be wonderful to be able to do that as your full-time job. But I want to do that for each and every one of my officers eventually, and get that income in. So we will make money out of this, guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's going to be I know it's an uphill struggle.
Sure.
And I really don't care if people say, oh, you shouldn't make money out of that. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Because you're not.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it makes perfect sense. And especially when you consider that doing this stuff takes your time and energy. It takes resources. It takes equipment. It takes any number of variables that don't provide themselves. So
absolutely,
I think it's fine.
I think I've spent around £6,000 on equipment and software licenses and things that I need to do my job, that I'm not getting paid for. I haven't earned a single penny out of this at all so far, and I've spent a further 2,500 on an online case management system called THEIR, THEIR, which is the name of a female goddess of wisdom and knowledge and all that sort of stuff. So it fits quite well. So I've spent more money on that to make sure we've got a proper system in place. It's GDPR, under GDPR law. We're registered with the ICO, which is Information Commissioner's Office. We do it all properly. It's what we do. We make sure people's privacy is protected, because we are dealing with sensitive data and information at the end of the day. So we do it all, in a structured manner for that reason. But so that's the agency. We've got that website there. People can go and report their incidents to us. They will get an email back from us with a reference number and can you provide more information, and we can make an assessment. We do have to have a threshold, though. Will it meet our investigation threshold? For example, if you send me a picture of just a dot in the sky with no information with the photo and not even the original photo, it's not going to meet our threshold for us to spend time on doing an analysis on it. So we have to sometimes really like say, thank you, but there's no investigative like value in this for us to spend that time. It takes a long time. It does, and we've also got a YouTube channel called @SEPI Agency, and you'll see from some of our videos, especially the Paranormal Police Case Files series, that we show you the analysis. So we don't just say to you, this is not this, go away. We actually say, we don't believe it's this because here's the analysis, and we show you why. We take you step by step through a video analysis or a photo analysis, and we'll go through it, and we'll show you the reasons why we think it's A rather than B. And one of the things that we are very conscious of is that, and one of the rule sets really is that we must rule out the natural before we go supernatural. We must rule out the normal before we go paranormal. And we must rule out the terrestrial before we go extraterrestrial. If you can't do that baselining, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just
good point.
Making things up,
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So that's where we are with that. So that's the agency. It's been going, like I say, since 2023. But we don't just investigate, we also innovate. We come up with new hypotheses. So we're trying to find answers to, everyday paranormal phenomena. For example, we've pushed out a hypothesis, and there's a video to support this if you guys want to watch that. If you go to our channel, but it's called traumatic time impressions, or TTI for short. What is traumatic time impressions? Well, it's an explanation for what I'd say is a large percentage of apparitions. So when people see what they think is a ghost, or a ghostly figure walking the lonely halls of a grand house, or that monk that walks through the graveyard, the lady in red, and all these sorts of stories that we hear and we're fascinated by. To me, they need further scrutiny. How do they behave? Do they acknowledge you? Do they move things around? Do you see the full apparition, or was it just from the knees up? And there's all these things that we look for when we're being presented with an apparition case. So we don't go, well, that must be a ghost. So I'll give you a bit of story on this. I'll give you a little history on the English Civil War, Brent. And this outlines really the hypothesis quite well, I think. So back in 1642, it's pretty much the first English Civil War between King Charles I. So the parliamentarians and the Roundheads, they just, disagree with each other, as they all do, as it did with the American Civil War. And they went, well, we're all going to fight each other. Okay, but we're very British, so we're going to meet on a field. We're going to go somewhere in Edgware, it's called. We're going to go and meet on a field, and we're going to, sorry, Edge Hill, sorry, to correct myself. And we're going to slug this out between ourselves. So yeah, very British. They all turned up, one side there, the other side there. 27,000 men turned up that day in Edge Hill. And it's known as the Battle of Edge Hill in English historians in 1642. So they waited, I think, it's quite funny, they waited till a certain time before they started shooting at each other, which is very British. I think they probably wanted to get up, clean the teeth, have a cup of tea.
Sure.
And then went, you know what? Yeah, I think it's time now. Tally ho! Fired the first musket round, and they slugged it out. So that went on, and there was drums beating, horses charging, pikes impaling. It's quite brutal, because if you think about warfare back in those days, it was very hand to hand. Unlike what we do now, we do drone strikes and we've got snipers shooting people from about 800 yards away, and we've got Apache helicopters can fire missiles over like a mile away. You won't even see these things come at you anymore. But in those days, no such thing. It is eye to eye contact. It's bloody and it is traumatic. You can imagine seeing the eyes of your enemy and thinking, I've got to stick this pike in someone's chest. It's how they do, it's brutal. It must have been just an horrific scene of
Yeah.
27,000 men just trying to chop bits out of each other. That are from the same country. That's just incredible. So this battle ensued, and there was no real clear winner, but it kind of stopped. So that day, I think 1,000 people lost their lives, which out of 27,000 is good odds, but
Yeah.
even as I say, one life is a loss. So it's bad enough. So you got 1,000 people dead, and maybe many more thousands like injured, maybe life-changing injuries. So quite a horrific event to go on. So that happened. That happened in, I think it was, looking at my notes, 23rd of October, 1642. Later that year, in fact, near Christmas Eve that year, 24th of December, shepherds were out tending their sheep. They work quite late because sheep don't have a time schedule, and neither do farmers, even to these days, really. They're out tending their sheep, and it's quite late at night, and they noticed the sound of drums, first of all, coming closer to where they were. And they thought, what is this? And then they heard the horses like neighing and stampeding, and then heard cannon fire, and then to their horror, they actually saw the apparitions of soldiers fighting on the field at Edge Hill.
Wow.
They saw the whole battle play out in front of them for 3 solid hours. They were so petrified to move that they stayed in their position for 3 hours in the English December, which is freezing cold. Even back in 1642, they did not have the clothing we have today. So they must have been absolutely terrified to not move. They probably thought that they would get harmed by a stray musket or cannon fire or something. I don't know. But they watched the apparitions of 27,000 men fighting. Soon after it faded, because it literally just faded, they all seemed to kind of stop and it just faded away. They then ran to the nearest town of Kyneton. I say near, it's a bit of a stretch still. And I've done a video about this. It does show the map, so it can show you, from their position to where they went. But they went there and they woke up the minister and the justice of the peace, banging on their doors, telling them what they've just seen. I mean, they were terrified. And so they weren't dismissed immediately. But the minister and the justice of the peace went, okay, we'll go back then the following night, because this happened about between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. So now it's Christmas Day. Everyone's had their Christmas dinner. Everyone's done their thing. And then probably drunk, I don't know, but they've all decided, let's go out to Edge Hill and see what happens. Yes, so there's villagers and all sorts all go out there. Guess what they saw?
The
They
battle?
saw the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, my
It
God.
happened again 2 nights in a row.
Oof.
They were terrified. People ran back to Kyneton, locking their doors and like praying to God again, to whatever God. Well, I think they only allowed one God back then, wouldn't they? Probably. If you worship another one, you'd be tried as a witch.
Sure. Yeah. Wow.
But they saw it a second time, roughly the same time in the morning. It would have been the morning, obviously. So they sent word to King Charles I. They were that terrified that the minister and the justice of the peace sent word to King Charles I. Now imagine this day, an entire little village here in the UK saw something bad and they wrote to the king and said, can you come and look at this? They wouldn't even get an email through.
Right.
It just wouldn't happen. However, King Charles I did. What he decided to do is to send down a group of 6 officers to go and investigate. He actually was sending them to go and I think the words were, be still the sounds of the town, meaning go and sort them out. Go and calm them down, give them some reassurance, pat them on the back and tell them everything's going to be okay. So the officers came down. So this kind of happened on a Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. The following weekends, it happened again on the Saturday. Again, it was similar time at night or early morning. And this time the officers were there to witness it. And not only did they see it on the Saturday, they saw it on the Sunday too. They saw it twice themselves.
Wow, that's just amazing.
It's an incredible story. And the amazing thing about this is that those officers, some of those actually served in that battle. They were there and they recognised the apparitions.
Oh.
They saw them, including Sir Edward Vardy, who was the standard carrier, who had his hand chopped off. And I think he died as a result of his injury. They recognise people. They recognise the apparitions. So they were, as you can imagine, quite surprised. And guess what happened the following weekend? Same thing.
Wow.
Three times in a row now, 3 weekends in a row, these apparitions have come and done battle in front of witnesses. Now, you may be thinking, well, they saw these ghosts, and that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
However, what you have to bear in mind here, and this is the big difference between what I'm calling a traumatic time impression and a ghost, is that they saw the whole battle 6 times. They saw everybody. That means they saw 27,000 men fighting. But remember, 26,000 of them survived.
Right. Yeah.
So they were seeing the apparitions of 26,000 living people.
Wow.
Who were still living to that day.
Huh.
Maybe a couple died as a result of their injuries later on.
Sure.
But certainly not that volume. So they saw apparitions of a traumatic event, which is the basis of my hypothesis, is that because of that brutal battle on English soil against fellow countrymen, I think that trauma has just literally hit the time-space wall and left a lasting impression which bounced back for 3 weekends in a row, those 7-day space, which I find the timing's quite fascinating in its own right.
Right.
But then I have no idea if there was a 4th weekend or a 5th weekend. I have no clue because that's not been documented. So I cannot elaborate. Now, these officers had to go back to King Charles I and tell him, sorry, boss, these are real. We saw it multiple times.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, as an ex-member of the British Army myself, as an officer, you do not go back to your king and lie.
Right. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Especially in 1642, because you would end up with your head chopped off for that. It would have been seen as treason or perjury. It would have been you just don't do that. Not 6 officers, but they did. They had to say, in all honesty, we saw it, And so what the king decided to do was order that the bodies that are left out on the field still, because they weren't all buried, that they immediately go back and made sure that every single one was buried properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a result of that, the apparition stopped.
Oh.
It could have been coincidence. It could have just been that the energy faded.
Sure.
Or the acts of burying the dead properly. I don't know. It could have had a factor. I weren't there, so I can't tell. And we'll have no witnesses from that time. That was the first record of a paranormal event that was ever recorded in the British National Archives. Mm-hmm. And I've done a bit of work to try and find that original document, and I went to Shropshire and all sorts of places, archives, and the British National Archives, and even Westminster Archives. I've done a lot of work trying to find the original file, because I know here in the UK, we've spent a lot of time digitising old documents, put them onto PDFs.
Right.
And unfortunately, the original was missing, but there is a document which was done almost 200 years later, but it was recorded in another document. So there is a recording of that event. Now, when the British Archives gave me the document, they kind of Stratfordshire County Council gave me it. By the way, just look at my notes. When Stratfordshire Council gave it to me, they did caveat that was saying, "Oh, here's a document, but I've read the passage that you're referring to, and I think you should just sort of, bear in mind. I think they meant it with tongue in cheek."
Oh,
I went, okay, let me read it. If that's how it's put across, that's how it's put across. I read it, and it absolutely does not support that at all. It's a real account of a report, and like I just said, you don't lie to your king as a British officer.
yeah.
And I read that and thought, no, actually, this was a real account. This is a real document of something that's happened that affected an entire town in the UK. So therefore, that was the basis of traumatic time impressions. So, and remember, the word hypotheses is a Greek word. It's made up of, it means foundation and to build upon. So the very word itself has meaning. So you can't be wrong. No one can be wrong with a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a building block.
Right.
So the agency have come up with traumatic time impressions to answer apparitions and what some will call residue energy.
Yep.
I don't go with residue energy because residue energy is only for some people. Only those that are sensitive, I think, will feel what they will call residue energy. But remember our example of 1642, there was multiple witnesses.
Right.
They weren't all just happened to be feeling or seeing residue energy.
Right.
This is a real thing that multiple people saw multiple times. So residue energy to me doesn't answer the question of apparitions. And also when you're with someone who's maybe a sensitive or a psychic and they go, oh, I feel this, I feel that, I think what they're feeling is maybe a vibrational field of something where Bob standing next to him may not feel a thing or see a thing.
Right.
As Nikola Tesla will tell you, everything's energy, everything's vibration.
Sure.
And that rule is paramount to this hypothesis, because I believe fully that energy was firmly imprinted. And I really wished I knew what made that account repeat 6 times. I really wish I could find the mechanism to that, because if I knew the mechanism to recreate a traumatic impression in front of me, you're pretty much able then to replay any historical event in front of your eyes again, any event.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah. Wow.
Just to round this off, this doesn't just mean that traumatic time impressions is only applicable to large battles. It's totally not. Remember, it's traumatic time impression. It can be any traumatic thing that's happened to any number of people, even singular. So that ghostly lady or that horrendous monk you see, they are probably no more than traumatic time impressions rewalking their path. And I just wish I could nail down the conditions that make them replay to people.
Yeah.
And because if we could do that, that's the golden key. And that would be the final proof that TTIs is a natural phenomena. So on our online system, we don't classify this as a paranormal event.
Okay.
We classify apparitions as TTIs as a supernatural event because it's natural, but the word super will still apply because we've not got the answers quite yet. So it's actually a natural event, but for now, until the SEPI Agency or any other people that wish to build upon the hypothesis can bring more examples and bring more proof, we're going to have to give it a supernatural label for now, classification.
Sure.
But it's certainly not paranormal. So if you're listening to this and you regularly see an apparition and are quite afraid of this and, quite scared and you want answers, come to us. Let us help you investigate that. But what I would say is don't be afraid of it.
Right.
What you're seeing is something that will not acknowledge you. That's the big difference I must point out. These apparitions will not know you're there. They won't acknowledge you, and they certainly can't harm you. No matter how real they may look to you, they cannot harm you. So don't fear them. Mm-hmm. In fact, you should feel really privileged that you've seen it. Yeah. It's quite I don't want to take away the prestige and the romance of ghosts and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But I want people to be less fearful of what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. If I can help somebody, for them just to have an understanding, go, what I'm seeing here is a TTI. This is not a ghost. It's not going to harm me, and they feel better about that. Then I've done my job. Yeah, and I'm happy. Yeah. But we are, we're still investigating. So this is an open investigation for us still. I've still got a lot of work to do on the town of Kyneton. I still need to contact those guys to see if there's any still stories about that place. I've just not had the resources, which has been a real crying shame. The agency has been very up and down the last 2 years. We've had loads of cases in of all sorts of nature. So I just want, I do want to spend more time on this hypothesis and bringing more examples. So to any of our listeners that are regularly seeing an apparition, feel free to come to us and say, this is happening. Mm-hmm. If you have any video or photographic evidence, that'd be fantastic for us just to document and to analyse. Original footage, please, not something that you've uploaded to Facebook or YouTube. But that'd be great, and we can help. So, that's in a nutshell us redefining the word ghosts.
Yeah. Well, at least one example of them, because I do think that there's very active and intelligent kind of haunts where they're very much aware of you and targeting, but it does definitely recharacterize the residual energy idea, and I like what you're doing, because I think it is it's probably a pretty prevalent form of hauntings that people have, is these impressions, these recordings. You're right though. I wish we knew how they were triggered, because you imagine the ability to just go back and restart a historical event and observe it, and what could we learn, and I mean the applications would be immense for all of the things that have been lost to time, that we could now recover them. I just think that's phenomenal.
Well, I already think there is a device that does exist, that does do this. Oh. And unfortunately the Vatican are the ones that are holding it. Oh. Look it up. It's called the Coronosphere.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and people have said, this is a time machine that can recreate or replay a historical event. Now, I caveat that because I do have my slight doubts about the Coronosphere. Because some of the stories are that they've gone back and witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ himself.
Sure.
Now, that's only going to be real if it actually happens. Mm-hmm. So if it didn't happen, then that means Coronosphere is not real, because that means they didn't do that. Mm. So, I have my skepticism that it's actually even a real thing. But if it were to be a real thing, then they do have a device where they can dial in the numbers and go back to an event and watch it play out. And it's probably tapping into exactly what I've just told you. It's tapping into that energy, that vibration. Somehow some clever person's worked out how it works, and they can put in the coordinates and go, there you go, let's replay that. They're probably calling in the exact energy and vibration of that time.
Right.
And how they navigate that, I have no clue. It's not like, well, put a date and time in.
Yeah.
That's not going to work, because we're 3D space, and there's obviously other dimensions to think of too. So if there were a device like that, then there must be other variables that you must have to plug in for it to work. Mm-hmm. Maybe frequency value. I've no clue, right. And I'm not going to pretend that I know, but there must be more than just two variables, like a date and time. There must be more than that.
Yeah.
And not only that, we've got to remember that our calendar system has completely changed since then. You know, we've got the Julian calendar come along because Julius Caesar wants his name all over it, of course, because he's supreme ego of his, messing up our Gregorian calendar, and you know our calendars are completely messed up over the history. So you can't even use a date and time because you plug in a date and time that you think is like, you know, like I said, this 23rd of October, 1642. I could plug that in and end up seeing a completely wrong event. Maybe just see some shepherds walking about and go, oh, well, it didn't happen. No, you just got the wrong time, you know. Right. So, but yeah, so apparently there may be a machine that can do that.
The interesting thing, though, is that for the people that were experiencing these replays in this event in 1642, they didn't have a device. It was just happening right in front of them. So it must be something that can be any variables that are naturally occurring, especially in this place, that if you could dial that in, it would give you a formula. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, again, it's wild hypothesis, but it's fascinating, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I believe something just bounced. I think it was because it was a 7 days straight. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you work out your minutes and your hours, I think a number there is critical. And I should have really worked that number out. Maybe I'm going to do it in the next video, but maybe there's a number there that was captured and it bounced. And it bounced 6 occasions, 3 weekends in a row. Mm-hmm. But then nothing. It just stops. Like ripples in a lake.
Yeah.
If you throw that stone in the middle of a still lake, you know, the ripples would go out, but they will fade. And they will eventually hit the sides. I mean, imagine Lake Erie, how huge that place is.
Oh, sure.
You put one single stone in there, those ripples will reach the shore. Mm-hmm. And they will vibrate back again, but they'd be so weak that you wouldn't see it.
Sure. Oh.
And that's where I am with that. That's why I'm thinking maybe it's just a ripple effect that just lost its power after a while.
Very fascinating. Very, very fascinating.
So, yeah, so that accounts for a lot of apparitions that I've seen that have been spoken about and written about, but I've not been seen again. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that the energy just wasn't strong enough to come and replay again.
Right.
I just want to make a clear distinction between what I'm talking about and spirits. Mm-hmm. There are differences. There are conscious spirits out there. There are poltergeist activities, which I'll bring on to my next hypothesis in a second. But
sure.
I'm not discounting that there are no such thing as conscious spirits, because I know there are.
Yeah.
But I think the TTI theory hypotheses will answer a large amount of apparition sightings.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. So what is your second theory?
So the other thing we've been working on quite closely is what I call extra-dimensional entities. Now, it's not a new name. I didn't make the name up. And you can call them interdimensional entities or just entities, but I had to give it some kind of label because its existing label is just too terrifying. So, what are EDEs, the extra-dimensional entities? This hypothesis is going to be a bit controversial because it's going to pretty much upset maybe a lot of demonologists. So I will apologise in advance to you guys that spent a long time learning every single name in your demonology book and all their characteristics. And I've got one up here, it's called Demons and Demonology. So I've got my own encyclopedia of those guys. But what this is, it's a hypothesis that there is a real entity, there are real entities out there that feed on the lower vibrations of our misery, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. They are sometimes seen, but mostly are not seen. They affect people with schizophrenia. They cause a lot of mental health issues, and they unfortunately cause a lot of suicides per year. Especially in your country, you're losing the equivalent of a Vietnam War every year to suicides in your country alone. Yeah. And in this country, it's around about 6,500 compared to about 65,000, I think. I mean, that's a loose figure in your country. Every single year, you guys are losing a Vietnam War. And you got to think to yourself, what is happening? Why are there so many people with, multiple personality disorders, Tourette's, schizophrenia, which is actually just an umbrella term? So I've reached out to the British Institute of Psychology to try and understand what schizophrenia means. And if anybody goes and looks up the term schizophrenia, they will actually tell you they don't actually know the actual cause. To this day, 2025, our experts still don't know the cause of schizophrenia. And they will say things like, well, we believe there's a chemical imbalance. One of the shocking things I learned during this journey of looking into EDEs was the fact there is no such thing as a chemical imbalance of the brain. So I asked the basic question. I'm methodical and I'm forensically based. So I said, okay, what's the baseline then for a healthy chemical brain? So let's say I'm not insane. What would my chemicals be made up? What percentage of this, that, and the other is a healthy brain? What would you say? What's the baseline? What's the gold standard, as I would say in the scientific community? The shocker is there isn't one. They don't know. They don't actually know what makes up a healthy brain. So therefore, they cannot know that a cause of a mental health is caused by a chemical imbalance. You can't have the proof of saying, well, that's down to chemical imbalance when you don't have a gold standard or a baseline. You can't do that. There's no measure. And in the scientific community, I was quite shocked to find that out as an actual fact, to go, how can you not have a baseline? That's the most, excuse the wording again, but it's the most basic fundamental thing you should have as your rod to measure things against. Sure. And yet you don't have one. So I was a little bit surprised by that. And the reply I got back as well, an email from that institute was, good luck on your research. I just wanted an expert to talk to me about chemical imbalance and schizophrenics and the causes and the voices in the head sort of thing. So the more digging I've done into this, the more fascinated I got about let's talk about the voices in the head now. Let's talk about that. So as a police officer, I have dealt with a lot of mental health issues on the street, as you can imagine, because there's no care in the community, is what I call it. Once upon a time, we had institutes which look after these people. Were they run well? No, they were not run well. They were run terribly. Sure. Which is why they all got shut down. And I don't kind of blame them for shutting them down. But what they should have done is improved on their practices and not shut them down. Because these people need help 24/7. And yet they were just shoved out in the community to get on with it. So they become the police's problem quite frequently. And here we have a National Health Service, as you know. And that's in a huge mess right now. I won't go into all that, but it's not healthy. Sure. It's not a healthy system right now. Yes, I mean, I've been listening to some American podcasts recently, and they have touched on, one of Joe Rogan ones actually, touched on the health system you have in America, and that, there's some people that want a national health service, and I think absolutely you should. Everyone should have the basic right to life and to be treated, and I get that. But our NHS system, unfortunately, is in a complete state, especially since 2020 when... what happened in 2020? Something big that's really damaged the reputation of the health industry, I'd say, and definitely the pharmaceutical industry, which I will come on to in a minute. I'm not afraid of those guys. They got a lot to answer for. So we all need that. So I was a bit, I have to deal with guys on the street with this. And sometimes, it's always fascinated me when I observe someone talking to themselves. Now, they are in proper full swing. They are arguing with something. They are debating. They are questioning. They're proper gone. They're not. They are convinced that there is something there.
Mm-hmm.
And the scientific answer is it's audible hallucinations. Now, hallucinations should really mean that they're quite measurable, that the same things should happen. But they're not. Hallucinations are quite random. They're either up, they're down, sideways. Mm-hmm. They're all over the place. Hallucinations are just random. But these schizophrenics are talking consistently to the same entities.
Sure.
They consistently talk about the same thing, and these entities consistently tell them that they're not worth anything, that this person should continue to drink lots, or should continue to take those terrible drugs, should continue to have abusive relationships, should continue to work in a job that drives them mad, should continue to have relations with people that are not healthy for them. Mm-hmm. These voices will continue to put this person down and isolate them. That's a stage. They'll isolate them, and they will keep that person in a perpetual state of misery.
Yeah.
And self-loathing, and that's the difference. Hallucinations don't do that. They don't have a constant message. Hallucinations are random, and yet our health experts, and I say that loosely, are just telling people to go away and to ignore the voices, which I find is an incredible injustice to these people. They're not helping them. So their answer is to give them a pill, mm-hmm. Prozac or something else, and all that does is kind of melt the brain to a degree where the patients have no will left to fight anything. They just go numb.
Yeah.
So they won't make them better. And I spoke to a guy called Jerry Mazinski, who I've interviewed on my channel myself. He's worked in the psychiatric wards for 40 odd years in high-risk prisons. He spoke to and dealt with, very violent prisoners that are suffering from schizophrenic tendencies, mm-hmm. suicidal tendencies. And me and him had a good long chat. And he tells me in his 40 years' experience, he's convinced these entities are real. He's spoken to them through the patients. He's identified them. And when he's tried to raise this within his practices and through his employers, they've just said, stop telling them they're hearing real voices, you're making them worse.
Oh.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because that just means that we're going backwards, and these entities are going rife with us. So where do they live? Well, they live in a dimension very close to our own. Mm-hmm. They can hop in and out of our dimension quite well. They're masters of disguise and of deception. They can mimic anyone's voice and mannerisms. Mm-hmm. They can sometimes show up in form and look like that person. They are perpetual liars, and they will always make sure that you're in a headspace where it suits them. They don't want you being happy. They don't want you achieving. If they do allow you to achieve, it's because they're going to get something back out of it. And they never give you anything for free.
Right. They
are nasty, horrible entities. And they've been around for maybe as long as we've even existed, maybe even longer. Sure. Maybe they're actually the real people of Earth. We were brought here a long time ago. If you believe in the hybrid programs and the Anunnaki stuff and all that kind of things, look at your Sumerian history. Let's say we're quite young really to the planet. And so maybe we're the invaders. And these things have just gone, oh, okay, well, if we keep them in a perpetual low vibrational state, that's our food. And we're just a KFC to these things.
Yeah.
The more you're depressed, alone, isolated, and down, the more they feed. So you're nothing more than a Snickers bar. to,
Sure.
and they're just very clever. They know time space more than we do. They know it. And I've run another project called Project Crystal Ball, where I'm interviewing psychic mediums. I'm not interviewing to prove they have an ability. I'm interviewing them to see where the ability come from. I'm trying to look at the root cause of their ability, because I strongly believe that these entities will come to you in times of trauma,
Sure.
and need, and will take over. So they will be Jesus to you, or they will be, someone that you admire in history, maybe Elvis Presley even.
Sure.
They will be whoever you want them to be, which is where it leads me to the demonology thing, because actually these things are historically known as demons. They are what we have recorded as demons.
Okay.
And they will be any name you want them to be. If you decide as a demonologist you're dealing with Baal or Lucifer, one of the common ones, that's what the entity will tell you it is. And it will take on the persona that you expect as a demonologist or exorcist or paranormal investigator. It will take on the personality and the persona that you expect. It will be that. And it will try to trigger your fear points the most. So if it goes, okay, I'm Lucifer, and it sees that you've got a negative reaction, like, oh my God, I'm dealing with Lucifer himself, then it's game on for the entity.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, lovely, we've got in there, we've got his fear trigger. We're going to feed on this guy too now. Fantastic.
Sure.
They're greedy. They're greedy, and the good thing to bear in mind is that they are actually weak in our dimension. And the reason I say how are they weak? Well, they're weak because they can't do anything themselves here. They have to get others to do their bidding. So,
okay.
We could be looking at a lot of criminals have been locked up for things that they didn't actually do. Now, I'm not excusing murder and rape because a voice told them to, but I think sometimes that needs looking at.
Sure.
There's a famous case. I mean, there's a Netflix series in UK. I don't know if you've seen it on yours, but it's called Devil on Trial, and it was about David Glaxell, which that story was made famous by Ed and Lorraine Warren, which are the famous demonologists back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, and it's called Devil on Trial because David Glaxell was a kid that got possessed. He was an 11-year-old child back in 1980. And I think it's known to the place as the Brookfield case. I don't think, I do, I'm looking at my notes. It's known as the Brookfield case. So poor old David was this kid who was troubled by a demon, so we say. He got quite violent, and, a voice would come out of him. He'd be saying swear words they would never say in front of his parents. And, they were convinced, they needed a priest because, they're Catholic followers.
Sure.
And then Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved, and were, oh yeah, your child's possessed. We need to get him exercised immediately. So they went and got a special warrant from the Catholic Church and permissions, and dragged this poor child into a church. So it was Ed and Lorraine. It was obviously the Catholic priest. I think there was the sister of David there as well, with her boyfriend, who was only 19 years old at the time. And maybe obviously the parents must have been there. So, and the boyfriend's name was Arn Johnson, his name. So they're in there and they're seeing this horrendous practice happen in front of their eyes. The kid's thrashing around, probably hurting himself because of the trauma, the whole thing.
Yeah.
The priest is doing his thing, which is making the entity just, well, it's feeding it food. It's having a field day.
Right. Yeah.
It's having the time of its life. But unfortunately for Arn Johnson, the 19-year-old boyfriend of the sister, he obviously felt he had a hero complex, like we all would. If we saw a child in pain, he said, "Come to me, take me on," which you never do. You should never invite a vampire into your home, as they say.
Yeah.
For this reason. And David, I don't know if it was immediately, but he calmed. So they've gone, exorcism done, job done, Ed and Lorraine, another little sticker there, and off they went. However, Arne Johnson, 6 months later, wakes up in a prison cell covered in blood, thinking, how have I got here?
Oh, no.
What on earth? How am I covered in blood? Unknowing to him, he was in the presence with his girlfriend and his friends, where apparently he blacked out. He felt something overtake and he blacked out. He stabbed his friend to death.
Oh, dear God.
Chased him out of the house and stabbed him to death. I think it was on the lawn outside. But, and obviously police came and obviously arrested a murderer. And the reason it's called Devil and Child, because I think it was the first time in American history, or in even any history really, that the devil was used as a defence. Because Arne was, that was not me. I did not do that, Right. And then they've heard the whole story about David's and his possession. I think Ed and Lorraine Warren were called as witnesses to the trial. And ultimately, you know what, he didn't get away with it, but he got a lower charge.
Okay.
And I think, on memory, I think he was let out about 3 years later. So it wasn't murder. I mean, here it'd be called manslaughter.
Sure.
Where someone kills someone with no intention to kill.
Right.
But killed him nonetheless. I'm not sure what you guys call it, but...
Yeah, it would be the same.
Yeah, manslaughter. So I think he got a lesser charge of manslaughter. And of course, it destroyed lives. And why I use that example there is because exorcism didn't work. All it did is tell the entity, remember, there's no time for these things.
Yeah.
They don't care if they wait 6 months or 6 years. It makes no jot difference to them. So what the entity did is like, okay, I bide my time and you'll be my next victim. And I'll make you do something horrendous and you'll be in prison and I'll feed off of you even better.
Sure.
Well, the 11-year-old kids, I'm going to, they get their payback. So I'm also probably going to upset the Catholic Church. I've never seen any proof of exorcism actually improving people's lives. All I think is all they're doing is pushing back, is buying time. I think those things come back.
Yeah.
And when they come back, they will come back worse, like in this case.
Yeah.
This poor guy, Arne Johnson, probably had no intention of killing anybody. And of course, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. I was not there. I was not at the trial. This happened a long time ago. But it's described something that's even happened to me. I've been in a room where my eyes sunk to the back of my head. I was in the dark. I had something come over me and talk to my friend on my behalf. Luckily, it wasn't a violent experience. But nonetheless, I've experienced that. I know that's real.
Yeah.
Because it happened to me. I'm just so glad it wasn't a horrible entity.
Right.
In my case, like it was for poor Arne Johnson, and obviously the poor victim who obviously tragically lost his life in this story, which we can't forget. And I feel terrible for that family who just, how does this happen? They were friends,
Sure.
Alan Bono, his name. I've just got his name here. Alan Bono is the victim. So my heart bleeds for him and his family had to go through that and go through this horrendous trial where, for that family, for Bono's family, must be thinking, what on earth is he talking about? The devil.
Yeah.
But let's think for a moment. If that is real, let's say, let's just, put it on the table. Let's say Arne was real. That was real. He didn't lie. An entity did make him do that. Now look at all the murders across the world. And now look at maybe the ones that said the devil made it do it, or Jesus told me to do it, or God told me to do it, or the voices. There are thousands of those cases,
Oh,
absolutely
sure.
thousands of them,
Yeah.
and they all need looking at.
They
But
do. The tough part is how do you develop any chain of proper diagnosis for something like this, because we're dealing in a realm of unknowns and ideas and theories, if you will, but to come up with some clinical manner of prescribing and deducing such a thing, I think is wonderful. Honestly, I've thought that same thing. How many asylums are sitting, packed with people that are dealing with something like this regularly, but our Western sciences don't acknowledge this part of our maladies. That there's a
yeah,
spiritual element to this. So I think it's fantastic and ambitious. I guess I will say that I think it's very much overused, the term demon in the paranormal world. I don't think that. I don't doubt that there is things called demons. I just don't think they're as prevalent as we're led to believe. But I think that there's other things, such as you're suggesting, which were never human and never had the human experience, but somehow have access to us through, much like the mechanics you're talking about, whether it's vibrational but it's a war of attrition. When you're dealing with these things, they, like you said, they have nothing but time. They can spend a decade wearing you down, and it's nothing, because they don't deal with time as a linear thing like we do. So I think it's fascinating, and I commend you on at least going into this part of possibility and being willing to explore the options. I think that's amazing.
it is obviously a touchy subject because it's going to upset demonologists for a start, because I'm pretty much stating these entities are just lying to you. They're going to behave and be called anything you want them to be called. So let's take away the label demon for a start, because that just invokes fear. It's a very cleverly crafted word, which has been given the negative inclinations for, throughout entire history. If anyone says, "Oh, we're dealing with a demon," immediately you're going to be on the defensive and fearful. So let's take away demon. Let's now call it a boring word, EDE. Let's call it Eddie. Because that's the first tool in fighting these things and fighting back. Now, what you just said is very valid. How on earth do you measure and clinically judge this psychotic patient that's murdered someone and say, "Don't worry, it's not his fault. It's an entity's fault."
Right.
How do you do that? Well, that's going to take a long time, and that's never going to happen until clinical, the clinical trials and the medical profession recognise that these entities are real.
Mm-hmm.
Until they're actually recognised, then you know what? Psychotic patients are never going to get better.
Yeah.
Schizophrenics are never going to get better, because the medical profession just dare not look at something they can't touch and feel.
Sure.
And
Unless there's a pill.
That is what's causing a problem.
Unless there's a pill for it, it's not good business.
Yeah. And that is the other problem we're facing. I think some of these entities are in positions of power as well and influence. They are there in our pop stars, rock stars, and movie stars. Emphasis on the word star, illumination, blah, blah, blah. They're there in our halls of governments. They're there in walk in the offices of pharmaceutical companies. They are there, and they will say to. I mean, one of my videos is about the entities' influence in Hollywood, and people openly said, I sold my soul. They're not selling their soul to the devil. They're selling their willpower to an entity who will eventually come back and claim their prize. Yeah. And in my video, I feature people like Kurt Cobain, Robin Williams, people that have committed suicide. Yet they had all the fame and fortune in the world,
Sure.
but were never happy. And you should be thinking to yourself, why? Why not? Why they're not? And people go, well, he had dementia, he had this, he had that. Louis Body did dementia, as in case of Robin Williams. That's not good enough. There's something behind this stuff. Stop labeling and start looking behind. Peel back that label, because if only the guys would take this seriously, we could save thousands, if not millions, of lives. Because people would start going, I know what's plaguing me now. It's not a demon. I'm not insane. It's an entity, and now I'm going to starve it. So I do want to add then I need to add this in, what you need, how to protect yourself. So if you are suffering from voices in the head, and you're self-loathing, you're isolating, you're destroying family relations and all sorts of things. If you're just in a perpetual state of misery and you're taking those illegal drugs or you're drinking too much, whatever it is keeping you in that lower vibrational state, you got to recognise it first of all that it's not your fault. Yeah, okay. So just put that on the table. It's not your fault. Something else is making you do that. Because there's not a baby in the world that's born evil or bad. We're made that way through trauma, or it can have traumatic upbringings, and these entities, by the way, jump from one generation to another. They very easily do that as well. So what you've got to do to fight back is, first of all, recognise the fact that EDEs exist. Give them some empathy. So they have to feed. Okay, they're not going to go away. We can't kill them. I challenge any demonologist or exorcist expert to tell me they can kill a demon, because I bet you there's no such thing as killing a demon. You can't kill a demon. You can make it go away, but it'll only go somewhere else. So what I'm trying to say is that don't be the food source. Yeah. Be selfish. You're going to have to be selfish and go, I'm no longer going to be your food source. I do not consent to this. And my free will is more powerful than yours. Because our own free will is the most powerful thing in the universe. And this is what these entities do. They make you forget that. They make you forget the power that you have in your own free will. So take a stance and say, I own my own free will. And then you've got to look at the things that are making you that are perpetually miserable. And you're going to have to make a life change. You're going to have to stop taking those drugs, stop drinking, maybe get rid of those friends that put you down. You're going to have to make life changes. And that's not an overnight or easy thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, but as soon as you start raising the vibration and you're happier, you are not a food source anymore. So do the stuff you like doing, but not that have negative effects to you or those around you.
Right.
So if you say to me, well, Dave, I like drinking, so I'm going to drink more because you just said do what makes me happy. But if that's the thing that's keeping you in a perpetual state of misery, then no, don't do that thing.
Don't do that.
You need to go and do a positive thing.
Yeah. I think that's
not harming you.
That's an important take too, is that you got to keep your vibration high. You've got to, focus on the good and surround yourself with good people, supportive people. I think that in a lot of cases, and I know we got to wrap this up because we're running out of time, but in a lot of cases, it's very much like an abusive relationship where whatever these entities are, they follow almost a textbook path of like an emotionally abusive or a physically abusive person. They isolate. They want you removed from the things that make you happy and make you feel strong and self-sufficient, and they want to whittle away at the confidence. So it's really a pattern of abuse, is synonymous, whether it's an interpersonal relationship with another human being or something else. So those are great takes. Dave, you've given us so much to talk about, so much to think about. I love what you're doing, and I love the amount of thought and consideration that you're giving all these things, plus the tenacity to dig into it. And I, first of all, I want to commend you for that, because I think that it's exciting and maybe will help move the ball forward in this stuff. And I'm very hopeful that that's the case. But take a few minutes again and let people know how to get in touch with you, to, connect with SEPI and move the ball forward.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, yeah, we've got obviously a website up, so it's sepi-agency.com. So it's sepi-agency.com. So you can go there and you can link to our videos as well. So obviously we've got a YouTube channel at SEPI Agency, and all the things I'm talking about, the TTIs and the EDEs, our hypotheses are all there on the channel, because I like to put this out into the ether so people can start healing and understanding. So go there. We're on, X and TikTok, but I really can't stand those platforms, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan of either of those things, but we're on there. You kind of have to do your thing.
Sure.
We're also known as the Paranormal Police because of our style of investigations, but because we have a no-nonsense forensic approach to it too. So look us up. So that's how to find us, and we've got many more talks coming up this year.
Excellent, brother. Well, thank you again for making the time today, and I appreciate all that you brought to the table, and feel free to come back. We'll be waiting for you.
Thank you very much, Brent.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. Y'all take care, and remember, we love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.